Our location here is very like a piece of three-dimensional Messiaen music, and in his preface to the score, he says that all the bits of musical material, all the different sound blocks, are like a series of plays going on simultaneously on superimposed stages. And here in our building, we have the perfect location of superimposed stages. I hope he would have liked the idea of realizing this piece visually. I think he would think that was a very stimulating way of experiencing it.
And there was a rainbow round about the throne. Take thy heart into the land of promise. Enter the gates of the holy city. Walk through the streets of the new Jerusalem. Go round about her. Mark well her bulwarks. To the star was given the key to the bottomless pit.
Those resounding quotations are from the Book of Revelations and were the inspiration behind Couleurs of the Celestial City by Olivier Messiaen, the subject of this program. The other quotes were from The Saint's Everlasting Rest, a 17th century guide to meditation, a directory for the getting of the heart in heaven, which recommends imagining a vivid, concrete, dramatic setting to enable meditation. Messiaen's music does that in sound, and we have created it visually in our celestial city.
Olivier Messiaen was born in 1908 in Grenoble, in the shadow of the French Alps, whose awesome grandeur has remained a constant inspiration. The compositional vocation and the gifts to realize it seem to have been there from the start. He was a brilliant prize-winning student at the Paris Conservatoire. His first published works appeared when he was only 20, and he was appointed organist of one of Paris's main churches, the Trinité, aged 21, a post he has held all his life. His headlong career was interrupted by World War II. Messiaen was taken prisoner by the Germans and sent to a stalag in Silesia, where he composed one of his most deeply felt and popular works, the Quartet for the End of Time. Upon repatriation, he resumed his vocation, not only as a composer, but also as a teacher. His classes, like those of Schoenberg, belong to the glories of 20th century music. The presence of talented pupils with their own ideas and enthusiasms was to prove as unsettling as it was stimulating. Messiaen's musical language underwent a radical change. In the early 50s, he evolved a new style and, above all, a new sound, developed from researches he had made into birdsong. Couleurs of the Celestial City appeared in 1963. Since 1966, he has been engaged on 3 enormous works: the Transfiguration of our Lord Jesus Christ for chorus and orchestra, From the Canyons to the Stars for medium-size ensemble, and his only opera, St. Francis of Assisi. Happily, like our own Michael Tippett, creativity seems undiminished by age. And at 77, he is still writing.
He's a great keyboard executant. He's been an organist all his life, and he's written an enormous body of music for the organ. In fact, I think it would hardly be stretching a point to say that the body of organ works is probably the greatest since Bach.
Go to then, when thou settest thyself to meditate on the joys above. Think on them boldly. Bring down thy conceivings to the reach of sense.
You do not have to be a committed Christian to answer that famous question about Messiaen, to appreciate Messiaen's music. Nevertheless, his own intention is to manifest the truth which his Christian faith has revealed to him, and that's what his music aims to be. It aims to be truth and a revelation of the truth.
And so a work like Colours of the Celestial City is a kind of imaginative discipline which enables him, and presumably therefore us, to meditate on that truth. And I thought it was helpful for the purpose of this program to show how a process of meditation can be used to illustrate this piece, because in fact the method he uses, the method of composition in this piece, is strikingly similar to methods laid out in treatises for meditation by earlier religious thinkers. The quotations you've heard in this program are from The Saint's Everlasting Rest by Richard Baxter. That's an English 17th century treatise, and being English 17th century, about 1650, Mr. Baxter was a Puritan. And you've heard some very flowery quotations, but he had to insert a disclaimer for himself in that, and he said, "I would not have you," this is talking about the transcendent realities, "I would not have you, as the papists, draw them in pictures, nor use mysterious, significant ceremonies to represent them." Well, now, our Mr. Messiaen is a papist. He is a Roman Catholic, and he does draw them in pictures. And that is what Colours of the Celestial City is. It is a sequence of mysterious, significant ceremonies.
Get the liveliest pictures of them in thy mind that possibly thou canst. Meditate of them as if thou were all the while beholding them, and as if thou were even hearing the Alleluias while thou art thinking of them.
There on the desk is Colours of the Celestial City, the score, the work's grand design and our map of it. And if I look through it, I see semiquavers, demi-semiquavers, loud, soft, quite quick, rather slow, nothing that wouldn't appear in any orchestral score. And then you read Alleluia for the 8th Sunday after Whitsuntide, emerald green, sapphire blue and gold. And to the star was given the key to the bottomless pit. Bellbird, Tui bird, Gajalila, Vijaya. And even before the actual notes begin, there is a layout of the orchestra, the names of the instruments, the author's first preface, the author's second preface, work commissioned by, dates of the first performance, and a list of the participants in the first performances. And if all these things which are named in the score are so important to the composer, we might well find it instructive to turn our attention to the same things. It came about as the result of a strange commission. Dr. Heinrich Strobel had asked me to write a work for 3 trombones and 3 xylophones. I'd accepted, but I was very unhappy because I couldn't see how to use these instruments. After long reflections, I finally thought to myself that trombones have an apocalyptic sonority. So I reread the Apocalypse, the book of Revelations, and found there various quotations, the ones you heard at the beginning of the program. I was struck by the percussive sonority of the 3 xylophones, which would allow me to use bird songs on the condition that I could combine a piano with them. Still thinking about birds, I thought it was also necessary to have some clarinets to diversify the colour, and collecting all these ideas together, I added to the 3 trombones a small D trumpet, 3 ordinary trumpets, and 2 horns, as well as a bass trombone. Finally, metallic percussion, a set of cowbells, a set of tubular bells, 4 gongs, and 2 tam-tams. All this is also colours of the celestial city, and no other piece. Let Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, who is a pupil of Messiaen, explain how important this notion is.
I have given so detailed a listing of the instruments because their selection and combination belongs as much to the composition as what I have them play. The unique and non-transferable composition of one's sound material is, to my mind, just as important today as, for example, the selection of themes, motifs, and formal schemes was in earlier compositions. I also feel, therefore, that the specific selection and combination of an instrumental force for a particular work should remain unrepeatable and uncopyable, both for myself and for other composers.
And not only is this colours of the celestial city, this is also, for this occasion, the London Sinfonietta. The London Sinfonietta is an orchestra devoted to 20th century music, and it is therefore defined by the pieces it plays. The composer says what the modern orchestra is. This is Colours of the Celestial City, but the modern orchestra is different for every composition, every piece by every composer.
You only, I think, once or twice in the entire score ever hear all those instruments playing together. The Birds, for instance, have their own mini ensemble of clarinets, piano, xylophones, percussion. All the instruments which are very mobile, very rapid, which can do these rapidly moving bird songs. Have a brass chorale which can do the plain chants.
Another instrumental combination for Greek and Hindu rhythms.
The whole ensemble is split up in this kind of way.
We assembled for you the instruments, which are colours of the celestial city. And around me now are assembled certain artifacts which Messiaen is preoccupied with and which are also colours of the celestial city. And he lists them. Birds and bird songs from many different parts of the world, plain chant alleluias, Greek and Hindu rhythms, colours. Now, are we therefore going to give you an absolutely literal interpretation of this piece? And the answer to that, partially, is yes. And let me try and explain why I think Messiaen names all these things in the score. Everything in this piece happens in a circular way, if you like. The time of the piece happens the way you are supposed to go into it and come out of it. It all operates in a circle. And he's going through a sequence of transformations with all these things that he takes. He thinks that everything on this earth, a plain chant, the song of a bird, whatever it is, a colour, is all part of God's creation. So merely to name things on a score is like quoting something given by God. And I think that is a holy act for Messiaen. He is naming something that is holy. But he's an artist and he's transforming those things. And let me show you a diagram and I'll show you what I think is happening all the time in this piece. There
are your things that we've talked about. There are the names of things on the score. In an artistic language, he makes you hear the sound of things. Those in turn are symbolized for him by colors, and the colors in their turn symbolize the truth, la vérité, the truth of God.
Traditionally, time is organised in music so that we sense that there is a beginning, a middle and an end to a piece of music. But this circular construction helps us to see how Messiaen organises musical time in his work. His image for it is the rose window, and he says in the preface of Colours of the Celestial City that the work does not end, having never really begun. It turns on itself, interlacing its temporal blocks like a cathedral rose window of flamboyant and invisible colours. A cathedral rose window is something you can take in at once, in its entirety, at a glance. Or you can pick out individual incidents, and you can enjoy it by going into it at any point and coming out of it at any point. I perceive 4 big dramatic blocks in this piece. I think, for instance, that there's an earlier section, say going from the beginning up to figure 30, which is a kind of abstract mosaic of very rhythmic groups of birdsong, very static groups of colour chords and alleluias. Then we go to a big piece of high drama, the shattering cries of the Araponga, followed by equally shattering silences. And the biblical quotations like the abyss with the low trombone pedals. This is very high drama. And this leads you to the central core of the piece, very praising alleluias, bell-like alleluias. When suddenly the piece stops, it is as if time stands still. Now, Messiaen wants you to feel that time has stood still. And you get very slow chords, ecstatic, he describes them. Very, very quiet, almost the only time that there is PP written in the score. That is, you don't know it, it isn't written in the score, but that is the rainbow. That is the point at which St. John describes the glory of God by saying there was a rainbow around the throne. That is the rainbow of Messiaen's colours. And then you come out of this almost back to the beginning again, to the mosaic again, except that a lot of the pieces are fitted together rather more dramatically, so the mosaic is more intense. And I think that is a dramatic way of getting through the piece and a very easy way of listening one's way through the piece. It has a shape that you can easily grasp. I remember most of all from him his enthusiasm for everything and the joy he communicates. Life is a great joy to him. It is a great joy to compose. His faith is a joy to him. His delight in the birds is a joy. I think that that kind of joy is incorporated in a piece like Colours of the Celestial City. And if we have been doing anything in this series at all, it is to communicate ways of enjoying 20th century music. I don't want people to respect it, to be put off by it, to feel that it is something that they have to come to grips with willy-nilly. I want them to enjoy it, and I want them to know how to participate in it so as to enjoy it.